recording started. And then technically, I'm at the wrong spot because we're starting over here. Okay. All right, so this is the tracking with Google Analytics 30-minute quick training, take two, since I had a false start and did it 30 minutes ago. So the result will be the same, though. You'll get the information, and this is being recorded, and it will be shared on the website and emailed out as well. So after having gone through this the first time, I realized I also might have left out some important details that I'll probably have to add in terms of a checklist or a supplementary guide. So depending upon your level of knowledge and understanding with Google Analytics, I'm kind of assuming here that you know what Google Analytics is, that you have it installed, that you know how to log in, all that kind of stuff. So if those are poor assumptions on my part, then I apologize. But basically, what I want to do is take someone who already has a Google Analytics account and has it installed on their website and explain how I've been using goals to track calls and web form conversions. So, um, if you don't know where to go to get Google Analytics installed and set up, you can just go to google.com/analytics. They actually have a fair amount of information on how to do it. You can go to YouTube. If you have a WordPress site, which are most of my sites, you can go to wordpress.org/plugins, and there's about 1 million WordPress plugins that will allow you to kind of cut and paste your Google Analytics code and stick it into your website. It's nothing more than just a piece of JavaScript that runs every time the page loads and then sends information to a database that Google calls Google Analytics, right? So the final result, the goal is to end up with something that looks a little bit like this. So this is a screenshot from the goal settings area, which I'll break down here in a minute how you set this up. But basically, what you want to end up with is a bunch of goals defined and then tracking for each of them. And so in this case, we're tracking, banner advertisement calls. So we actually put phone numbers. We put phone numbers on banners. When we do retargeting in some cases, Google calls. So these would be numbers that we actually put inside of Google AdWords, sorry, in the ads themselves. And then the third one that's kind of blocked out there is for a landing page phone call. So even though and I recommend that you do this, even though you can now show phone numbers in Google Ads, you should also have trackable phone numbers on the landing pages themselves, particularly if the product or service you're in can take calls. And then, of course, the landing pages, thank you pages, and web-based funnels. Those are kind of those last three items down there. So we'll go through each of those. The other thing that you can do with goals in Google Analytics is actually track values. So if you're selling stuff, and so this is more of a visual breakdown of when the goals are being completed and the values and the conversion rates and so on and so forth. Now you need to understand that for the most part, Google Analytics is a great overall tool, but it's not always going to be 100% accurate, right? Because it's providing these goals based upon the web page loading for a user and that the JavaScript on their or the JavaScript is being executed by the browser. So in order for the goal to fire, everything needs to be working on the client side. So it's not always 100% accurate, but it's 97.5% or something. So this is a kind of an excerpt from my analytics account and the More Customers Faster site. You can see here I'm under the administrative section. So you need to, on the top right hand side, when you get into Google Analytics, there's an admin button. You click that and then you'll see these options. One of the options is goals, and you just basically just need to create goals. Now they tell you they'll give you 20 goals. I've never really had to use all 20, but I also don't tend to work on super complex e-commerce sites and things like that, and as I think is the case for most of us. So when you click the button, you have a number of different templates that are shown. My experience is that you don't really need to use any of the templates. You can just hit the custom button, and for the most part, we're just tracking destination pages, right? So we're tracking people that go to the thank you page after filling out an opt-in form or something like that. And so all these other things are kind of, I don't know, supposed to make it easier, but in my opinion, they kind of make this whole process a little bit more complicated. So really what you need to do for the most part is just hit the custom button and then hit the next step. And for landing page conversions or web forms, what you're going to use is the goal type is called a destination. And the destination, as you see here, we've just set it to /FT-thank you, which was set up for this free training event, and kind of used the analytics that we set up for this webinar as an example. So you don't need to put the full website address in here. You just put the thank you page. So wherever the person goes after they buy your product or sign up for your newsletter or whatever the case may be. And then you can set, values and then set a funnel. We'll talk about the funnel piece here in a minute. And the funnel piece is important. Now the value is really nothing more than, is it worth a certain amount of money? And you just assign a dollar value to the goal. So as I said, the destination is /FT-thank you. This is what the FT-thank you page looks like. You may have seen this page when you signed up for this webinar, or you might not have, just depending upon how you came to be here. So I set this page as the destination goal. And if you look at the kind of overall breakdown of this, the goal, letter A here, is FT thank you. The value, letter B, which is optional. I leave it off because there is no real monetary value that I'm aware of currently for people attending these free webinars. Not yet, anyway. C is the funnel option, and this one is key and critical when you're doing multiple paths. So in reality, there's more than one way to register for this webinar right now. You could have gone to the home page of the website. There's a call to action button there. You could have gone to the landing page that I emailed out, which is what's demonstrated here as free-training-sign up. And in order for me to track this goal specifically to what was emailed out, the free-training-sign up, you need to set the funnel option as on, but then also set required as yes. And the reason you do that is because there's several different ways that somebody could get to your thank you page. They could just go straight there from a link that they kept before, and they can get there from the landing page that I emailed out. They could also get there from the home page. If you want to track the homepage funnel separately, then what you need to do is have a whole different goal called homepage sign up or something, and then set the first step to whatever your homepage destination path is, URL. It could be an index.html, whatever the case may be, and set that there. You can also, you'll notice there's add another step button below this. You can make these funnels, these paths that people take, very complicated. So you could make it set up in such a way that, I could have a goal that says, buy my product. It could be the thank you page for a purchase. And the first step could be this first free training. And then the second step could be a free ebook. And then the third step could be the sales page. And then you can track each one of those individual pages, how many people went through that path before they finally made a purchase. But for the most part, just to get it done quickly and easily, you just want a thank you page and then a funnel page. That's it. And now my preference is to make it required because I want to know specifically how many people that went there ended up at the thank you page. And so I'll break that down just a little bit more here when we get to the next slide. Let me just see what Kurt was asking. Okay, so I'll answer your question at the end here, Kurt. Okay. So now this is kind of the path that I had set up. So when we were talking about funnels, is that it's required that they hit the free-training-sign up page before they go to the thank you page in order for this to be tracked as a goal, right? So doesn't mean that people aren't getting there different ways. It just means I'm only going to count it if they come through that specific path. That's why I said it as required. People could still arrive there directly. They could also arrive there from, social media post, or they could have arrived at the thank you page from your home page. And so this really does give you the ability to actually have one thank you page and then multiple goals with different funnel requirements. So I could set up the home page as a step one funnel, the free training sign up page as a step one funnel, and I could set up a social media source as a step one part of the funnel. And then each of those could have different goal amounts, which would end up with something a little bit like this, right? So I've got this homepage thank you where there was 10 completions, and then a different landing page where there's 4 completions, and then on this particular example, 3 phone calls. So this is from a client. This isn't specific to what I was just showing you, but you can track phone calls, web form completions, really honestly anything, because now that they allow you to connect goals with something called events, which we're going to get into in a minute, you can literally track anything that happens on a website and then make that a goal. And the idea behind the goal, of course, is that it's well, it's a goal. It's something that you want somebody to do when they come to your site. And if you don't have a purpose for your site or your page, right, then what's the point of having it there? And tracking it is really important. The other thing that you can do is tie that into Google AdWords. So if you're doing Google paid advertising, those goals can be imported, and then what that will do is tell you cost per conversion. So any number of goals you create, if you're running Google pay-per-click campaigns, you have to connect the accounts together, but they'll actually tell you if that goal is converting for your paid advertising. So, in the scenario where you have a landing page and a thank you page, and then you buy advertising from Google and send people there, this would allow you to directly correlate those goals with that ad spend, and then you can see what it I've highlighted in yellow there, the cost per conversion. So it costs you $60 to convert a lead. Obviously, the game is to lower your cost per conversion, which can be all kinds of things, right? Split testing your landing page, your copywriting, having better ads, having a lower cost per click, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all things that you can do once you track your cost per conversion, and where you start with that is with your goals. And you can do that with other things in Google Analytics that I'll talk about in a minute. Now, again, if you're using AdWords, this is important. If you're not, don't worry about it. Just know that you can go in there and click the Import from Google Analytics button, and then what will happen is it'll actually pull in all the goals you've created in Analytics and then ask you if you want to track them in AdWords. You don't have to use them all, so you can use some of them or none of them, and then track those goals from Google Analytics into AdWords and use those as cost per conversion tracking items. I see that I've got a number of questions here. Again, I'll get into those at the end. So if you're doing call tracking, you have a number of choices. There's a million different tools out there. One of the ones that we kind of like to use for local clients is CallFire because it's inexpensive. If you're like Andrew, who is on here, and you're in Australia or somewhere else, you have to use a different service. But there are a number of things out there, people that have modified Twilio and stuff like that. But in the case of CallFire, which is really easy to set up, you buy a number and you buy call credits, and then in their dashboard you just set up, you hit that configure tracking button, which I'll show you in a minute, and I'll show you how you tie that back into Google Analytics. If you're using Google AdWords, they have something called call extensions. So with call extensions, they'll assign you a phone number. The thing I don't like about call extensions is that they give you some random phone number that only they track, and you don't have control over it or anything else. It just gets randomly assigned. And for a lot of the local business clients that we deal with, they don't like that. They want a local number. In fact, in Texas, for example, where we have some customers, we'll use CallFire, and then we get a CallFire number for each city. So Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, wherever they're doing business or advertising. And then in Google AdWords, we set up campaigns in each of those cities. And then in this call extensions option inside of AdWords, they allow you to use your own phone numbers. But if you do that, the problem is that they won't automatically track conversions for you. So in the screenshot I showed you earlier where you have this, whoops, I gotta go forward to show it, where you have this nice cost per conversion, cost per click amount. That's done automatically with phone calls if you use Google AdWords phone numbers, but it doesn't do that if you use external phone numbers, like CallFire numbers. But there's benefits to using the CallFire numbers, right? So, um, if you look at the analytics option versus using AdWords, is that with analytics, you can track anything as an event. And this would include something like a postcard. So if you use CallFire or some other calling service that allows you to push data to Google Analytics, that is the kind of the key requirement. Whatever calling system you use, if by phone or any of these others, as long as they give you the ability to send data to Google Analytics, then you can track them as events. Okay, and events will allow you to track pretty much anything. Button clicks. If you want to know if somebody watched a video on your website, it'll track that for you. And in example here is postcards even. So something we'll do for our clients who are doing direct mail or even radio is you give them either a specific URL or a private URL for the postcard and a specific phone number that is on CallFire, and then all of that stuff can be tracked in Google Analytics now. So literally any campaign that they run can be aggregated into the Google Analytics account, and then they can see what kind of return on investment they're getting for sending out postcards. Or you can see that if that's something that you want to test and try, or direct mail of any kind. Just basically make sure you put in a CallFire number or something similar, and then separate URLs or pearls or something like that that you can track to that campaign inside of Google Analytics. Now, in the case of CallFire, what you have to do is, and this is very similar to many of the call systems that are available online now, is you just enable the analytics tracking. You define the domain that you're tracking it to and the Google Analytics account ID number, and then you give it a category. Now, this category is for event tracking, okay? It's important that, and some of these guys like CallFire have poor documentation on this, so it took some experimentation to find this out. But basically, when you name the category, that's kind of the identifier you're going to use inside of Google Analytics to set your goal. The other thing is that you want to not have any spaces in the category name. It has to be all one word or have dashes or something. It won't track spaces. Another thing that they're not kind enough to tell you in advance. And so what happens is when you get back into Google Analytics, just so if I'm clear, this screenshot is from CallFire, where I'm telling it where to send the data. And then in Google Analytics, I come back over to my goals section and I set an event. So you see on the left there where we have event, and you describe the event, and you can really set the event name to anything you'd like. You just have to make sure whatever you're tracking is actually firing off one of these events. So in the case of calls, the call system has to have the ability to push it. And then you'll see here where I put goal details, the event condition category equals phone. So this has to be the exact same, spelling, capital letters, lowercase, etc. So I put capital PHONE. I got to make sure I put capital PHONE on here. The description can be anything. So in the example I used where it was a postcard, it could have been phone call from postcards, or postcard calls could be the goal description, and then the category could be phone, right? Now, as before, if you want to set a value for this, you can put a value in right below there and say that each phone call we get is typically worth $10 or whatever, and then over time you can actually show an aggregated value of your campaign. And then what should end up happening once you get these things all tied in and configured is various goal sets like what we see on the screen here, with various things that we're tracking, and then a total overall view of everything inside of Google Analytics, including in some cases revenue generated and things like that. In fact, they do have e-commerce tie-ins. So you could actually see that, of all the people that hit the goals, 80% of them spend X amount of dollars. That now gives you the ability to tie dollar amounts to your goals, right? So on here I have banner calls, Google calls, landing page calls, which is kind of blocked out because it had a customer name in it. Thank you page conversions, a homepage thank you page conversion, and then a landing page thank you page conversion. So they're kind of named funny, but the idea is that I basically have three call goals and three landing page goals, each of them tracked separately, and in many cases, each of them tied to a different advertising campaign and budget. So the kind of the breakdown is simple. I mean, really, you just got to have analytics installed. Then you just go in and define your goals, set the path for each one of those goals, your entrance and exit, particularly for landing pages. And then in the case of external items like phone calls, you have to define your events and set your events as goals, right? And then those will aggregate all that data. All that stuff will get aggregated into Google Analytics. And now you can see across all your advertising campaigns what the results are, including social media. For guys like Andrew who do a lot of social media stuff, you can do the same thing. So if you want to see, how many Facebook posts or Facebook visitors turn into um, sales or leads, then you just simply set that goal pathing information such that you require that they've come from Facebook before they reach the thank you page. Then what you'll have is at the end of the month a list of a number of goals achieved from your Facebook visitors, things like that. Next week, just real quick before I get to some of these questions, next week I'm going to show you how to aggregate not only Google Analytic data, but AdWords data and Fusionsoft data, um, various other things, so you can actually get kind of a dashboard tool built for yourself or for your clients. We build dashboards now for our clients so that they can see money in, money out, number of leads, number of calls, number of visitors, number of Facebook page likes, how much money they're spending on each advertising source, and various other things. There are some restrictions on what you can do based on integrations, but the overall concept is really key. One of the things that you may have a challenge with, or your clients may have a challenge with, is if you spend money on Facebook advertising, you spend money on LinkedIn advertising, you spend money on Google AdWords advertising, how do you track all those things together and try to determine which one is driving the most in terms of leads and sales for you? So, all right, I'm going to get to the questions here. I've got a number of them. I'm going to pop this out so I can see it a little bit better. All mostly from Kirk. So let's see. So Kirk says, so with the goal, you can track what happens to a visitor after they leave your website, like purchase on ClickBank. Um, you can't track external paths. There used to be, I don't know how it is anymore. It's been a long time since I've done a kind of affiliate things on ClickBank, but you used to be able to track affiliate conversions by giving them, your tracking pixel, your conversion pixel from Google AdWords or whatever, and track that. Um, Google does have the ability to track third-party sites and things, but it's really complicated in my opinion. If One of the things that I may talk about next week instead of dashboarding is the ability to track aggregated data from different analytic tools like Kissmetrics or various other things out there. So there's other analytic tools that do a better job of tracking people across various sites. So for example, if you own 10 websites, but you all of them ultimately lead to the same goal, to your e-commerce store or something, you still want to see which websites are driving the most traffic and that sort of thing. It's typically you're better off using something like Kissmetrics or something like that. Another question is, can the funnel page be a thank you page in Kajabi? Um, yes, it can be. I think that might be another scenario where, depending upon, and sorry for that minimizing, but because I clicked on the chat thing, it disappeared. That might be another scenario where when you when you're tracking across multiple sites, it might be easier to use a third-party tool. So you guys are kind of helping me out here. I think that'll be a topic I'll cover in the future is, tracking goals across different domains and sites. Put that in my to-do list here as one of the free trainings. And then, so Kurt is saying that we've got our own membership site, our own landing page, and a ClickBank pay page, and a thank you page from Kajabi. What can I actually track? Well, you can track all those things, and you can do them all with Google Analytics. But I think you might be better off using some different tools, but still aggregating data and tracking some of it with your analytics stuff. So, and then he says he's also running pop under ads for the landing page. How can I track that? It should be able to track that natively if it's part of the same website. If the pop unders are being provided by somebody else, I don't know how you track that. I'd have to look at your stuff. With events, Andrew says, with events, can you track the clicks on a video, i.e., how many times it plays? Yes, you can totally track that. In fact, if you do just a Google search for tracking events in Google Analytics, one of the examples they have, Andrew, is video. And as you might imagine, if you're using YouTube videos, they kind of would prefer that, and they'll give you really good examples. So you can go check that out. It is a little geeky to do that. Some people kind of prefer to use things like Wistia, which kind of give you analytics by default. What I think is really interesting, and some of the things that we're working on with our customers, is to take all this data and then tie it into things like Infusionsoft, where you're actually seeing, what someone did. So Andrew went to my page, he signed up, then he watched the video, he clicked on it, he watched it for 10 minutes, and he disappeared for a month, and then he came back again, and then finally bought. That kind of stuff I think is really intriguing and worth knowing. So yeah, I think some of those more advanced topics I definitely want to get into. I think for the most part, for the quick 30-minute training stuff, I want to just cover like little quick topics like this, and then also get ideas from you guys about what you want to hear in the future. So you're welcome, Andrew. You're welcome, Kurt. Anybody have any other questions? I know that for some it might be a little bit too complex, and for others it might be too easy what I covered. If there's something specifically you'd like to hear next week when we do our next 30-minute session, let me know, and I'll put it on the calendar. I'm probably going to do either the KPI dashboard next week or some of the analytic aggregation tools. We'll see. How much do you charge for the tracking dashboard? Kurt asked. I don't usually charge for it. I'm already charging for it. So usually I only provide it to clients that hire us to manage their advertising and funnels and things like that. So they're already paying some sort of monthly fee. But I'll actually just show you how to set it up yourself, Kurt, if you want. And it won't be that hard. How do you hire me? There's if you go back to the morecustomersfaster.com site, there's a button down at the bottom, and we can set up a conversation if you'd like. Roy says, I'm new and this is a little bit difficult to understand. Actually hoping to go through each exercise. Yeah, Roy. So yeah, this particular webinar is probably not the best newbie training per se. But really, when it comes down to it, tracking your leads and your sales and having analytics in place is ultimately where you want to be. So it's something worth gaining more understanding of, even if you're doing stuff as an affiliate. The most successful CPA offer guys and marketers out there, really anybody, businesses period, are the ones that track everything, right? So hopefully you can come back next week and we'll cover some other stuff. And Roy, if there's something in particular you're looking for, I don't have a problem doing some introductory information as well. All this content is just going to be shared on the site and available for everybody. So any other questions or suggestions for next week's call? How do you avoid duplicate page issues with Google when you're split testing? Chris asked. So Chris, I assume you're referring to really more like content stuff. So you're thinking of like SEO, right? So one of the ways that you can do that is just simply make the page a non-indexed page. So in other words, you tell the search engines that it's not a page that they need to pay attention to, because if you're doing advertising, then you don't necessarily need to have SEO functions. The other thing that you can do with stuff like that is you can use tools like you can use, lead pages or unbounce, and really they only show one page to Google, but the visitor gets split tested different pages. For the most part, I don't think you have to worry about it. I mean, if you only have a few landing pages, they're probably not going to have enough content on them to even be considered a content page and then get slapped for it. So I really wouldn't worry about it too much, unless you had hundreds of pages or something. Um, okay, I think that's it. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Apologize for those of you that were on earlier or got on late or whatever. I started the webinar early and and then restarted it. So this is technically I've done this twice in the last hour. Anyway, so stay tuned. Please, stay connected to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com. You need to go search for the More Customers Faster site. So morecustomersfaster.com also is where you'll see the recordings for this stuff. And of course, by email, I'll send things out as well. So thanks again for hanging out, and I appreciate the questions and the interaction. I love it, and look forward to talking to you guys again next week.